Want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Life Advice, the email address. Hit us up. Holiday season. lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. A little two-man weave today. Cerruti is off. It's just Kyle. What is good, my friend?
Yeah, kicking it old school. Shout out to Mexico Steve. Hope he has a great time and at least one good story.
Mexico Steve. I like it. Okay, so we got a follow-up from our guy from the Netherlands on the office Christmas party. And let's clarify a couple of things here. All right, because it's now been a week. Hopefully our guy's feeling a little bit better. He said, hi, I just want to follow up and add some more info if you guys are interested. Oh, we're interested. First, I want to say this did happen in the Netherlands. Eindhoven?
I think you did a great job there. That's what I would have said.
All right. The email that I sent you guys was the first time actually telling someone the experience because I couldn't tell anyone else. I was so embarrassed. So basically during the week, 3 or 4 guys that I'm closest to while talking about work tried to ask me about Friday, as they also didn't remember the last part of the night. I am probably okay since no one from HR said anything. Dude, I really don't think anyone from HR is going to say anything to you about going to a bar after an office Christmas party, unless you were just like, out of like, to be drunk is one thing, to actually have an incident.
Right. Okay? Unless your puke is on someone else's shirt too. Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Right. But I'm still waiting for the end of the month to be sure. I don't think you're going to have to worry about it with the holidays.
Yeah. Don't do this to yourself. Yeah. Not during the holiday season.
Right. Nobody's going to be like, we're going to hammer this guy on January 3rd. They sent this picture attached in our work group chat. I'm the guy with the peace sign. Yeah. Last call peace sign. The guy that said, hey, Friday got crazy is the second from the right. He looks like he's having a great time. That button down is working overtime. We've got a little bit of a Werewolf of London look to him. I think there's a chain there. There's a lot of moisture. And he might be at the equator of buttons. So, yeah, like it might be 3 or 4 undone with 3 or 4 on the other side. I also opened my Google Maps history and saw that I left the bar at 3:10 a.m. and Google Maps showed that I wandered for 3 hours through the city, walking about 5.4 miles, got my cardio in, NBD, before going home at 6 a.m. All in all, I wouldn't recommend the experience to anyone. Thank you for the laughs. Signing off, Blackout Crew. All right.
The best part about the picture is that also should make it feel good is there's 5 dudes in that picture. His eyes are maybe the third most drunkest eyes in that picture. Definitely, you could make a case that he's second most, but he's definitely not the first most. And that's good too.
Yeah, the guy that asked him, hey, Crazy Friday, was doing the same thing that you've been doing, but he did it out loud.
He asks that question every Monday, by the way. So don't worry.
The scene looks great. Like, this is not you at a Chili's. This isn't the Dundies at 8 p.m. acting
Right.
like this. You went to the after party and you kept it going. The funny thing is all the women in the picture, they're smiling and they look way more sober than all the dudes are. But look, when you're talking about that region, men go hard. That's my scouting report. The men go hard. So anything else to add, Kyle?
Case closed. Love
Case
a happy
closed.
ending.
Yeah. I mean, and he got his exercise. So, all right, let's see. We had a lot of people following up on the guy posting up women all the time. He actually even chimed in. Maybe we'll save that. We'll save that for later. Okay, let's do this. Let's do expressing your feelings. 6'2", 200 pounds, bench 160, maybe. Get those numbers up. Comparable to Dennis Rodman on the court, can't shoot, can't dribble, can make a decent pass here and there, but damn it, do I have a vertical and long arms, so I rebound like crazy. Oh, crazy vert. I'm not an emotionally expressive guy. I think words are overused and undervalued in this arena. How can you say you love hot dogs and then also say you love your wife?
Got a real poet here.
Yeah. You ever thought about it that way, Kyle?
Yeah. Do I even love my wife when I think about how much I love the Pats? I mean, really, I never thought about these things.
That's so good. I almost think this is a joke, but we'll keep reading it. Do you love the wife more or less than the hot dogs? I've never said I love you to anyone, family included. It just doesn't really mean anything to me. I'm sure this is a product of my upbringing. My mom was expressive, but was a narc and always ratted me out to my dad for when I got into fights at school, so she couldn't be trusted. I've turned this franchise around, mind you. I'm a lawyer. I make a decent living, so I'm not a barroom brawl bum or anything. Not with those bench numbers. You just get into fights all the time, though, when you were younger. Then you would tell your dad, and your dad and your mom, or you would tell your mom, and then she would tell whatever. Yeah, again, you're a lawyer now. I think things are fine. My dad was a school type of guy. Other than ass kickings when mom ratted me out, kid stuff was not my dad's job. If my mom was out of town and my dad was in charge, he'd send my brother and I, age 8 and 10, my first memory of this, to school in a cab because he didn't know where we went to school. What? That surprised he'd want to pay for it if he were that old school. That's pretty crazy if you don't know where the school is. Anyway, in spite of my emotional inexpressiveness, I've been dating an impossibly patient girl for 3 years now. Never expressed a single feeling to her, but somehow she gets it and puts up with her. Puts up with it. I show her my feelings through acts of kindness, surprises, flowers, other nonverbal ways. We have a great time together, and she's an absolutely fantastic teammate. But she still does wish I'd be more verbally expressive. Seems to be a thing for the ladies. Therapists have had their opinions on this, but a normal guy view on things, despite of not feeling too many feelings or expressing them. Cue foreigners, I want to know what love is. Would you fake it and say to your lady anyway, even though you feel like you're being disingenuous and only saying because you know it'll make your lady happy? Or is the disingenuous too manipulative? I can definitely live with the disingenuous, more concerned for her thinking that I'm being manipulative. All right, yeah, the guy, look, educates to the hot dog thing now actually makes more sense. This guy's good. He's good. But he says words are overused and undervalued. Man, this guy might be onto something. Let's let you go first here because you're in love.
So this is not the classic, like, I have trouble saying I love you, because don't even write into life advice with that. You figure that shit out, man. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. If it's like, I can't say the words I love you, figure that out, dude. Sorry. Give your dad a couple hugs, see if it comes back to you. But I think if it's not that, if it's just like stuff like in general, where she's expressing she'd like me to be like more verbally, positive towards her or whatever, I think there's nothing disingenuous about it. Just because you don't want to say it, it doesn't mean you don't mean it, right? I mean, I say shit all the time that I don't want to say, but it's like, it's better off for everyone if I say this stuff when we're talking about responding to stories that I'm completely lost in, or, discussing about stuff hanging on the wall, or there's this really cool picture frame she wants to get. Like, I don't really want to talk. It's not disingenuous because I'm engaging in that conversation. It's just, I know she'd be happier if I do it. So I think you got to stop at it as like, you're breaking your principles, your morals are crumbling if you're like, placating the woman that you've been with for 3 years and, would like to move forward with. Like, it's not that serious. Like, you're not, you don't have to explain yourself to yourself if you're like just gonna say like, hey, you look really nice today, or like, wow, I don't know, just whatever, the shit she wants to hear. So I'd say I think dudes have been saying shit that their girlfriend wants to hear for centuries, if not millennia, and I think you should just get on board and you won't feel that bad about it.
Yeah, I feel like you're examining this a little too intensely by saying like, oh, because I'm not comfortable with this, or it's not normally what I would do. Like, clearly, if you've been with her for 3 years, whatever your version of love is, or whatever your idea of this, like,
it's cutting it, right?
Yeah, it's happened. Okay, it's happened. It doesn't mean you have to. Everything has to be a cuddle fest. It doesn't mean, you have to do. I think a lot of times with the love bombing shit, like, that's actually way more disingenuous than taking your time to do the nice things. It's cool when the beginning and it's so exciting and you want to make all the right impressions, but like, you also don't want to peak after 60 days and then it's just a downhill slide.
Right.
This slow descent down Everest the rest of the way.
Yeah, like, now you're underperforming the last month of the probation period, right?
Right. So I don't think that, but I mean, back to kind of like the point that I wanted to make is why does this have to be so intense? Why do you have to counter your own philosophy on this? Right. Clearly she just wants you to share a little bit more. Like, man, it is, you can have like an epiphany in a relationship where you may see it one way, you may see it the other way. Like, I remember there was this guy that I used to work with and he just did incredibly well with women. He was just awesome at it. And then I was like, they don't get pissed at you? I was like, they always seem to get pissed at me. He's like, man, he goes, just from the jump, like, I just tell him like, I'm not into labeling anything. I was like, oh,
So they're on their toes.
right.
It's-
Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, but that must be kind of shitty for them.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, oh yeah, no doubt. No doubt. He's like, but I just tell them from the jump, like, if they ask me like, what are we doing or whatever, like, I'm really into labels. It's like, no, you just don't want to admit what it is because the label of what you're actually doing is not the label
You're not
anybody
into
would
consequences is what it is.
Right. Like, oh, I'm just going to be a bullpen. I'm going to be the lefty on a Friday, and then you're going to go to righty on Saturday. Like, nobody would go, hey, I'm seeing this guy, but I'm one of 5 people he's seeing. But he's not into labels, so it's fucking cool. So you're so far past all of that that's not even what this is. I'm just wondering, why do you have to get in the way of you clearly feeling great about this woman by wondering if by you expressing this to her with you, which you have time with, that you're then kind of like violating your own code,
Letting yourself down.
Yeah.
By being
Yeah,
happy.
I actually don't think you should be this hard on yourself. Like, you don't have an upbringing that was like, it wasn't a house filled with love. You may have loved each other. You may have supported each other. It wasn't outward love. And so that's just not who you are. I think men tend to be more like that than women do. That's based on my experience. But then if you're with a woman who eventually like gets to the point where you're like, I never know where you're at. I never know how you feel. Like, people actually need to feel this stuff every now and then. Like, look, I'll make an analogy that may make sense to some of you or not. But like, look, as an on-air person who's done this for 2 decades now, I know I'm good. I know I'm good at it. Right. But it does hurt every now and then to hear from somebody that's either in charge or that you work with. I'm talking like once a year, maybe twice a year, to go, hey, you were fucking great on that show, or that interview was incredible. That's something for the managers out there. Like, you may have the top, but every now and then, like, nobody's bummed out to hear about how great they're doing. And the person, when I was younger, I wanted to hear it more. Or I was insecure about how I was doing. And so maybe I'd be looking for that confirmation of, hey, am I doing a good job or whatever? But I'll never be at a point in my career where I won't appreciate hearing it. And so on a much more serious level of what you're talking about here is, you may be that manager that's like, why do I need to tell you how great you are when you are great at what you're doing already?
That's what the money's for.
Yeah, right. But it's still awesome to hear, man. It's still awesome to hear. So don't get in your own head about like, well, if I'm not really wired this way, then I do it. Isn't that being worse because it's actually disingenuous? Like, why even add all that into this? Just try to understand why she needs to hear it more than 0 times.
Yeah, you're not letting yourself down by compromising.
Yeah, your dad's not going to be like, hey, we got to talk. I heard you said you love your girlfriend.
Right.
All right. Do we do this? Yeah. I mean, I know the jokes will follow. Montana solo trip, although technically that's not really the one you can make fun of. 30 years old, single. I'm taking my first solo trip at the end of the month. I'm traveling to Montana to check out Yellowstone. I'm flying into Bozeman and staying in West Yellowstone for 3 nights, where I'm doing a snowmobile and snowshoe tour. My last day is open. I think I'm going back to Bozeman, hang out there for a day and check out the bar scene. Any advice for a first-time solo traveler or something you recommend doing in the area? He says also 10 years ago that he saw me in Tallahassee at a bar and offered me a shot. And I said no immediately. And there's one bar in Tallahassee where I think I was there with like 30 different guys that said they owned the place, which was really hard to keep track of.
Yes. That's great.
I didn't say no that night. Anyway, look, solo traveling is not for everybody. We've covered this. I think it's great, man, when I can just go, hey, I can leave now, or I can go somewhere else. Like, somebody else was asking me recently, like, can I go on one of these trips with you? I'm like, I don't know. I also wonder if people wonder if I'm like really into prostitutes and heroin. Like, that's why
take quarterly trips, just let it all out.
Yeah. I just go like Thailand crazy. I don't think I would podcast. I don't think I would do travel logs if that were my deal. It would be just like podcasting, feel like it would take a back seat to that stuff. Again, don't really know. So the thing is, you already sound like you have some stuff that you have activities planned. So you'll probably meet people during these activities. And that's like a leg up already. If you're a solo guy, but you're with a group in this, I would imagine people are going to ask you to do this. I'm well aware of Yellowstone. I have not ever stayed there. It is, by all accounts, like an incredible setup. And for those that don't know, it's part of these properties that, high end stuff. The bar there, the golf courses, and you're going in the winter. Like, I've never heard anybody, but I don't know that you're necessarily like staying in there. I don't know all the geographical lines of that area. I loved Big Sky. When I went during the summer. I started in Bozeman. I drove all the way down the river and ended up in Big Sky. And I like, again, solo traveler, I like Big Sky so much that I was like, I think I'm just going to hang out here for a few days. But again, I was there in the summer. I also, looked at real estate just because I like to do that kind of stuff. And the guy was like, well, let's, I told him what I did. He's like, let's start in Yellowstone. I was like, yeah, we're not going to waste anybody's time over there. There was a couple dive bars near the town that I just kind of checked out, whatever. It was great. It was a lot of fun. It was funny too, because the guys were like, what do you think? I was like, this place is awesome. And they were like, don't tell anybody. It's like a real, like, prideful, like, we're not Aspen, we're Big Sky. So it's definitely, despite the Yellowstone part of it, the town itself is really small, little pizza place, little theater, like really quaint and cool. And I love the river part of it because I was fishing pretty much every day that I was there. The hiking part of it, it can get a little weird. Like, I hiked up to this lake that was, I think, 3 miles above this trail or something. And it was this lake that was just kind of suspended, which, again, there's tons of stuff like that out there. It was worth it. It was incredible. But I would say if you're hiking solo with the animal life around you, like, just be, just have your head on a swivel. And if you can catch up to another group, figuring, hey, I can outrun this group if a bear is around, no problem. But basically everybody, when I was hiking out there, everybody that I ran into had a gun on them.
Yeah. Could you just rent it, like hiking gun rentals or something?
I don't think it works that way. I don't.
Probably not.
I don't.
Not like a Hertz, you drop it off at a different one at the end.
I'll tell you what, it made me want one pretty bad though. Because I was like, because I'd have my fishing stuff with me, and if I find a little water, I would go, hey, like, could you just stop here? And I would, but I would, any fucking noise, especially when you're not like, again, I live in pretty populated areas. So you don't, you hear fucking twig snap and you're like, what's that over there? Where, the
Sure.
people that are local are like just way better at it because it's their life, it's their environment. So I would say on the Bozeman part of it, I only had one night in Bozeman, and I felt like I was going back in time a little, where it felt like people really like driving down that main street in their trucks over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And then I went to another bar where there were a lot of dudes, and they were getting after it, but it was a lot of dudes in overalls, and like the Yin Yang Twins came on, place went fucking crazy. And you were like, Senorita Timberlake was a big crowd favorite.
Love that one. Right.
But I mean, those songs are like 15 years old, which, again, not knocking it or whatever. I'm just telling you, if that's your scene, it was a rowdy crew. Like, as a solo guy, you're probably not going to be invited to hang out with any of those guys because they don't want to meet you. They just got done with a 12-hour shift, and now it's time to, listen to some Little John, just yelling what the whole time in some Carhartts. So I liked it, but I knew there was never going to be any, like, and again, I'm older anyway. So, nobody's like, hey, stranger, hang out with us the whole time. So Big Sky, I loved. I don't know the difference between the winter and so, well, I guess I can guess it, but I wasn't there during the winter. But enjoy the freedom. Yes, there'll be loneliness, but enjoy the freedom of it, because you can decide. You wake up and you get to do whatever you want to do that day. Don't take that for granted. Kyle, you ever do any solo travel?
I thought I did work maybe, but no, I did something. The only true solo trip, I think it was I had a summer court date in Potsdam, and no one was there. And there was like a guy who I stayed at his apartment. I had to be there for like 3 days. And it was like the worst trip I've ever taken. There was no one around. Potsdam, beautiful in the summer. You never really get to be there otherwise, but I was just so bummed about, like, I was like staying on some dude's couch. He wanted nothing to do with me. So I was just like, walk around, went to the bagel shop. I think my fake ID was stolen in the whole court incident anyway. So it was like, I couldn't even go to a bar by myself. There was no parties. It was just like being in this kind of deserted town. It was really sad. So that was my only solo trip.
Why did he let you stay with him?
It was a friend of a friend who I was just like, man, I have to be up there for like 2 days. Like, it's a 5-hour trip up. Like, I can't do it in the same day. Like, I just need a place. Everyone was gone. He was like, well, my friend, I think, is staying there and taking his summer classes, but he didn't really know me. And, we had to kind of beg to get this done. And I just stayed with the guy, like, in his like living room. And he, like, I don't know, never even made eye contact with me.
So you just sat on his couch for 2 days with nothing to do?
I did a lot of walking.
Date?
There's a St. Lawrence River. I did a lot of walking, stayed there, smoked a bunch of cigarettes there. Just like, God, this is the longest 2 days ever. Yeah.
What was the verdict?
It got dropped down to the misdemeanor. Shout out to Vern, my lawyer, old man. Really, really, I guess a good job. I think that took way longer than it needed to. But like I said, everyone knew this was a misunderstanding, but, had to go through the courts, had to run it up the flagpole, whatever they say. So.
I know. Big misunderstanding. Glad it worked out.
Yeah.
That's life advice. Thanks to Kyle. Thanks for Oregon on the show today. We'll be back on Monday. As always, the Ryen Russillo podcast. Bring responsibly.